There was a time when I believed that effort was the proof of my faith. I truly believed that if I strained, if I pushed, if I labored inwardly in the silence of my room, I was earning my desire. I walked through this world assuming that the harder I worked in imagination, the faster the result must appear in the world of shadows. I was wrong, profoundly wrong. Through bitter experience, I discovered that the very effort I was making, the very strain I believed to be devotion, was the wall that kept my desire at a distance. The obstacle was not outside of me. It was the manner in which I approached the thing desired. I had been schooled in the world of Caesar to believe that reward follows toil. I had accepted the belief that nothing is given without labor, and without noticing it, I carried this burden of effort into the delicate world of imagination. Yet I found that in the world of imagination, effort is not power. Effort is confession. It announces inwardly that the thing desired is absent. When I strained to visualize, when I forced my mind to hold a picture until my head ached, I was confessing that I did not possess it. I was confessing separation. I was confessing distance. And the deeper mind, which faithfully reflects what is felt, reproduced more waiting, more struggle, more delay. The more I tried to make it happen, the more I confirmed that it had not happened. I then saw clearly that my effort was not helping me at all. It was the very thing that stood in the way of what I desired. Let me take you back to a winter in New York City, 1933. This was before I stood on any platform, before I understood the nature of assumption, before I had any authority to speak of these things. I was a dancer, unemployed, with empty pockets. The city was cold, gray, and unforgiving, and the depression of that era weighed heavily upon every street. I carried within me a burning desire to go to Barbados. I longed to see my family, to feel the warmth of the air, to escape the bitter cold that surrounded me. Yet physically I was stranded on West 72nd Street with no means and no way. I believed I knew the principle, or rather I believed I was applying it. My old friend Abdullah had taught me to live in the end, and so night after night I went to bed and I labored inwardly. I forced my mind to see palm trees. I clenched my eyes, straining to smell the ocean air. My body became tense, as though imagination itself required muscular effort. I was mentally lifting weights, attempting to compel reality to take a new form. Each morning, I awoke exhausted. My head ached from concentration. I checked the calendar anxiously, wondering if the ticket had arrived, if something had shifted, if my effort had finally been enough. And yet, nothing changed. The mail came, no ticket. The days passed. The cold deepened. I told myself that my suffering must be noble, that surely such effort must be noticed. But the silence of the room answered me more honestly than my justifications ever could. I was fighting reality, and reality was unmoved. I was attempting to break down a door, not realizing that it had never been locked. At last, worn down by my own striving, I went to Abdullah. I did not go seeking instruction. I went seeking sympathy. I wanted reassurance. I wanted him to tell me that my effort was admirable, that my labor would soon be rewarded. I entered his home and began to explain everything I had been doing. I spoke of my visualizing, my persistence, my exhaustion, and then I said, Abdullah, I am trying to go to Barbados. He stopped me. He rose from his chair, his eyes fixed upon me with an intensity that stripped away every pretense. He offered no comfort. He offered no sympathy. He said only one word, stop. Then he spoke, and his words struck with absolute clarity. If you are trying to go to Barbados, then you are not there. And if you are not there, you are here. You cannot discuss the means of going to a place you already occupy. He told me plainly that effort was evidence of doubt, that I was behaving like a man beating against a wall, not realizing the wall was only a mirror reflecting my own assumption. Then he turned away, walked to his door, and said with finality, "You are in Barbados. You went first class, and I will not discuss how you are getting to a place you already are." And he closed the door. He would not entertain my striving, because to do so would be to deny the assumption itself. I stood alone in the hallway, stunned. But in that silence, something within me collapsed. The anxiety broke. The need to prove myself dissolved. I saw that I had been holding my desire like a fistful of dry sand. When the hand is open, the sand rests naturally. But the moment one squeezes, the moment effort is applied, the sand escapes. The harder the grip, the faster it is lost. This was the principle I had overlooked. The moment I tried, I implied that I was not. It was like standing before a mirror and demanding a change. No amount of shouting or straining alters the reflection. One must first change one's own expression, and the mirror has no choice but to follow. I recognized then that my strain was not faith. It was anxiety, wearing the costume of technique. The feeling of the wish fulfilled was not tension. It was relief. That night, I went home and did not work inwardly. I did not wrestle with imagination. I allowed the feeling of fulfillment to settle, as one sinks into a bed at the end of a long day. There was no effort in it, only acceptance. And in that acceptance, I rested. I then had to observe my own inner posture. Were my hands clenched? Was my jaw tight? Was I carrying the assumption as a burden rather than a position? I saw clearly that creation is finished. One does not labor to build a house that already stands. One simply moves in. I required no declaration, no outer sign, no performance. The world of Caesar did not need to know what had occurred in silence. The acceptance itself was the seal. The seal was not spoken. It was felt, and once felt, there was nothing left to maintain. Now, I ask you to turn inward. Become aware of your inner posture when you assume a thing to be true. Are you holding yourself tight? Is there a quiet tension within you, as though something must still be forced, maintained, or earned? Are you weary from trying to make it happen, as though manifestation were a task to be completed, a duty that demands constant vigilance? If you believe that relaxing your effort even for a moment would cause your desire to slip away, then you are not yet living in the house. You are still trying to build it. And if you are tired, it is only because you have been carrying what was never meant to be carried. Creation is finished. The invitation then is simple. Drop the burden now, not tomorrow, not after another explanation, but now. And if something in you is ready to stop fighting, ready to accept that it is already done, then give yourself permission to rest. The moment you try to make it so, you confess that it is not yet so. Effort is never neutral, is a statement of separation. For what you truly are conscious of being, you do not labor to become. I did not force the world to change. I withdrew my attention from the question of how and when. I stopped watching the mirror, stopped measuring the distance between desire and fulfillment. I lived from the position already taken. and without argument or strain, the world adjusted itself. This is the application. You do not cease living your life. You cease moving from the sense of not having. You no longer protect the desire with effort, but remain faithful to the state you have assumed. So leave it alone now. Not in indifference, but in confidence. Do not try to make it happen. Do not secure it with strain. Simply abide where you have placed yourself in consciousness. Now, let us go into the silence.